It is time for a new leadership paradigm. It is time for a new leadership paradigm. Come on into this virtual room and space. Welcome in. It is time for a new leadership paradigm. Welcome in. Come on in. The standards here on these internet streets, here on social media, it's time for an upgrade because they are subpar at best. It is time for a new leadership paradigm. Come on into the space. If you are a leader, a visionary, an activator, a trailblazer, an entrepreneur, and you lead people, especially here on these internet streets, you will want to tune in to this conversation. I'm presencing myself, anchoring myself here to the I am that I am, calling in my beloved God's presence. May God's presence go before me. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for being here. My name is Cassandra Austin McDonald, and you can call me many things, but one thing that I am is a truth teller, and I've been one since I came out of the womb. I have been speaking truth as long as I can remember, and when you are a truth teller, that means you also a truth seer. You have to be able to see, to speak what you see, and I have seen some things in my 10-year in leadership, in my 10-year on these internet streets, in my 10-year in this industry that I'm specifically in. Some of you may not even be in the coaching and personal development industry. You may be in a totally different industry. However, I'm going to talk about principles. I'm going to talk about standards. And so this will still be applicable no matter what industry you find yourself in, because I believe these ultimately are life principles, how we ought to be leading ourselves inside of our lives, inside of our relationships, inside of our leadership. And so what I do is I walk with and I support high achieving leaders to hold the supernatural successes that they are co-creating in life, love, and leadership with soul sovereignty. And there's many ways I go about doing that. And one thing that I really stand on is embodiment standards. Embodiment standards is who we be inside of our life, who we be inside of our relationships, who we be inside of our leadership. And this is something you cannot outperform. This is something you cannot outwork. This is something that you can only mask for so long before the truth is revealed and the truth seeps through. So I have notes here so that I am intentional about the conversation that I'm leading here, and you'll see me glance at them occasionally so that we are staying on track and we are having a conversation that is of my highest intention to be of service and to support you in your evolutionary becoming in life, love, and leadership. And so if you know someone who would find value in hearing this, if you want to tag them and share this, I would appreciate it. If you are a non-BIPOC person, meaning you're someone who's not Black, Afro-Indigenous, a person of color, and you consider yourself an ally, you've done your decolonization work, and you know that there's people that need to hear this, and you want to support by being an ally, I ask that you share this, and I appreciate that. Thank you. So there's something I want to talk about that's been on my heart, and it's been steeping in my spirit for quite some time. And I thought I was going to have this conversation before I led Remarkable Woman last week. Remarkable Woman was a 5-day transformational journey that I led live, which you can now get access to this beautiful, beautiful experience and self-pace at yourself in your own timing and experience all of the wisdom and the insights and the also practical somatic embodiment experiences that I shared. And God told me, no, not yet. And then last night before bed, God told me tomorrow. And I understood why, because of a series of events that had occurred since then. And I believe that as leaders, it is our responsibility to lead with integrity and to be responsible with the way that we are modeling leadership, both within the work that we do and especially here on these internet streets on social media. And I believe in a philosophy called principle-based leadership, where it's not about performance, it's not about proving, it's not about pushing, it's about being in embodiment standards. And embodiment standards is where you are upholding a standard within your own beingness first. And then you go present that beingness out into the world in the work that you do. I found that too often people's vulnerabilities are turned into content for visibility, for marketing, for profit, for personal gain. And this is a violation of sacred trust. Trust is a standard that I uphold in my embodiment standards. Principle-based leadership is not about mining other people's energy or story or processes for strategy or exploiting them for personal gain. It's about honoring people's process with respect, no matter where they are in the process. I believe the reason the many years I've been doing transformational work, that the clients that I have served and worked with experience miracles is the best word to use, to experience outcomes that make absolutely no logical sense, but make absolute faith sense, because there's no pressure in my containers. There's no pressure in my world. There's no pressure in my spaces on timing of when somebody gets to a certain outcome or reaches a certain destination, because that is not solely my part. This is a co-creation between me, my clients, and God. And so I don't pressure. There's no covert pressure energy that comes from me inside of my work. And I believe my clients can feel that. They can feel that I'm not there pressuring them. They can feel that I trust that they are going to navigate this process in a way that is best for them. I trust their sovereignty. I trust in their innate sovereignty that was in them before the world told them who to be. I trust in their original design and blueprint, the way that God made them before they were formed in their mother's womb. I trust that. And because I trust that, I know that it's inevitable that they are going to become who God has called and created them to become, so they can go out in the world and create beautiful lives, extraordinary relationships, and ripples of impact in their leadership that outlives them. I personally believe I've already done that. And while I may not be famous, I may not be a multimillionaire yet. Okay, let's say yet, because it's coming. Okay, while I may not be known all over the world, I believe I have created ripples of impact that will outlive me. And this is why. Because I have had a front cover magazine feature where I was the first Black Afro-Indigenous woman on that cover. And that ripple gave so many other women in my community permission to be seen, to have their voice heard, to be known for whatever work they were being called and led to do. Because I've had multiple media outlet opportunities on the news and on NPR and different radios and podcasts that are living out there in the ethers that will outlive me. Because I had a self-published trauma memoir that many people have access to. It is now a classic that only certain people can get access to now because my story is sacred. And the impact I made in that will outlive me. There have been times I've stood on stages and I've spoken in front of hundreds of people, and the ripples of impact that I've left inside of organizations, inside of individuals, inside of leaders, inside of businesses, they are outliving me already because they've changed policies because of my talks. They have changed the way that they show up in their leadership because of my talks. They have shown the way they show up in their relationships because of my talks. They have changed the way they show up inside of their lives because of my talks. So the ripples of impact I'm speaking of is not fantasy. It's tangible, it's real. I've done my bit, and now I'm doing my next bit on on this leadership journey. And so in my world, your stories and vulnerabilities are safe. They will not be exploited. They will not be violated. They will not be mined for tactics. It's a standard I hold in my leadership. And so I have a new vision, a new paradigm for leadership that I want to share with you. And then I have some other things that I want to share with you as well. And so thank you for being here, those tuning in. I appreciate your presence. I see a new paradigm of leaders where messages do not exploit, it empowers, where it does not violate, rather we are valuing people's process, where we are being respectful of one another, where our words don't take from others. We're not colonizing people's content for personal gain. What we create should expand and empower, not contract people into disempowering states. And this is all coming from a personal experience that I had of navigating my experiences in different spaces and containers where I started to notice patterns in leadership. And I noticed that the standards that I hold in leadership were not being upheld by other leaders. And there was a season of my journey a few years ago when I was inside of a big business mastermind that I was in, and I was gaslighting myself out of my truth and out of my values because of the way leadership was being modeled. And I stayed in that container because I had already paid. It was a multi-5-figure investment. So I already paid and I wanted to get my money's worth. I was still in a scarcity mindset. I was still in a lack consciousness. And so I had to work through my money stuff or my money stories to overcome that. And I stayed and it just got worse and worse. And I always said that if I ever found myself in a space like that again, I don't care if I paid or not, I'm leaving, because I trust now in abundance. I trust now in prosperity. I trust now in Jehovah Jireh, my provider. And so I've had some experiences that felt very misaligned for me and the standards I uphold inside of leadership. And these misalignments that I experienced more recently, it could have silenced me as it had done in the past. However, it refined me because of who I be today, because I've been doing my work, because I have been deepening into my own embodiment to uphold these embodiment standards so that I can show up and share this mission, this vision of a new leadership paradigm so that we are all co-creating new experiences and leading a new way forward inside of our lives, our relationships, and our leadership. And because I chose to honor my process and do the work that I do somatically and unconsciously and with soul sovereignty, I'm able to anchor deeper into the kind of leader that I know God has called me to be. And I know that the people God has called me to work with are looking for, because I know you're the type of individual who also has high standards. The type of standards where people tell you you're unrealistic. The type of standards where people tell you that you're doing the most. The type of standards where people tell you that you are too much or you want too much. When really you have embodiment standards. You have a standard to have a different experience inside of your life and your love and your leadership. And so when you see something that is not reflecting that back to you, you feel that in your spirit. I shared an email yesterday in my email community. And so if you're not connected with me in my email community and you wish to be connected with me there, you could reach out and I'll send you a link to join. But I shared a story about experiences, how they can either create contrast or confirmation. And sometimes we experience things that are confirmational, where we feel like we heard what we were feeling that we were believing was true, but then we experienced something or we heard something or something was modeled in from us that validated that inner knowing. And then sometimes we have an experience of contrast where it shows us, oh, that's actually not what I value. That's actually not in alignment with my integrity. That's actually not in alignment with my inner compass. That's actually doesn't feel good for me and how I would do things. And so we get to learn from both types of experiences that are contrast and experiences that are confirmational. And sometimes the experiences that feel like contrast feel uncomfortable and they feel discomforting. And oftentimes what I see leaders doing is then they go out into the world and they don't do their work first to embody the lesson, to embody the wisdom, and share something from a place of maturity, share something from a place of embodiment, share something from a place of wisdom. And we see a lot of emotional toxicity, emotional intoxication happening. There are these undertones and these undercurrents underneath the words, and you can feel it and you can hear it and you can even see it for those of us who are also seers. And so this experience reminded me about my own embodiment standards and not playing this game of extraction or exploitation or mining or violating people's trust to get to an end result for more money, for visibility, for likes, for clients. Like, I am such a firm believer that God provides. That God provides. I have had the most extraordinary experiences in my life, my love, and my leadership, and so have the people that I've worked with, where we did not do what many people are told to do, and yet we still experienced outcomes that many people want and wish for and hope for and pray for and hustle for and push for and perform for. And I believe in part because we're in sacred co-creation with Creator. We are being led by God, not the grind. And while this is not about not putting forth work or effort, the grind is more of a frequency than it is a behavior. It's who you're being behind the effort, who you're being behind the action, who you're being behind the behavior that matters most. And I want to read something to you that I wrote. And I actually had posted this on my personal Facebook page. And then God told me, not yet. And now I see why. It was actually the day before I started running Remarkable Woman. And so I am going to show you the date for context for those who are curious, that this is not just a conversation based off of solely recent events, but this is actually something that's been steeping in my spirit for quite some time. So give me a moment so I can find a way to turn this camera this way and then show you the date. All right, there we go. And so there you can see where it says September 7th. And it says those of us on these internet streets for mission work will have an angle in our messaging. So you can see that says September 7th, okay? Which was the day before I led Remarkable Woman. And I want to read this to you. And then we're going to continue to steepen into this conversation together. Cheers. One moment. Thank you for your presence. Those of us on these internet streets for soul mission work will have an angle in our messaging. Our angle may or may not appeal to you. I believe it is the responsibility of the consumer to decide if the creator's angle appeals to you or not. For years, those of us who have courageously, bravely, and boldly put ourselves out there here on these internet streets to share our messages, missions, and unique pathways for entering our work and experiencing our art have endured projections, attacks, exploitation, and unnecessary ridicule, sometimes harshly and other times passive-aggressively and covertly. my God, this is so prophetic. Some say, well, that's just the nature of the game. Yet humans created this game. So is it not unreasonable to dare consider that humans can recreate this game, transform this game, revolutionize this game? This is a rhetorical question, not inciting a response. Sit with it. Let it marinate. I propose a new level and layer of leadership, one that is poised with respect, responsibility, reverence, and radical personal soul sovereignty on these internet streets. Our human systems and evolutionary becoming are still catching up with these tech modern times. It is abnormal to experience the level of exposure some of us have. It's absolutely absurd that as legally aged adults, we are having this conversation. Yet here we are. As we often see, multiple realities can exist at the same time. And although I personally do not agree with ways of being I've observed, many tend to be one way online and another way offline. With that being said, if someone's angle online doesn't appeal, align, or resonate with you, that's okay. And you get to be sovereign about what you do thereafter. I truly believe at the core, as leaders, we want to co-create our own tribes, communities, and lead in our soul missions in ways that advance the world forward and move humanity to a better reality collectively. That's a standard I am taking on these internet streets, conscious co-creations and interactions with one another. This requires profound self-awareness, self-honesty, soul sovereignty, embodiment standards, and emotional, energetic, intellectual, and spiritual maturity that I truly believe we are all capable of. I personally prefer to have pleasant experiences on here, and if moments arise where this feels unpleasant again, I will cross that bridge if it arises. I had to cross that bridge since I wrote this. What I'm standing for is a new paradigm of leadership, where we lead with integrity, where messaging doesn't exploit privately shared vulnerabilities or real-time client processes, where we honor each other's stories, vulnerabilities, and trust, rather than mining clients for content creativity or container or program ideas, where we co-create spaces together where sovereignty, dignity, and trust are safeguarded as truth, not as lip service. In my world, social media is not merely a game for doing business as usual. It is a platform and an opportunity for clients to find their soulmate mentors and coaches, to find products, to find connections in art, and vice versa, and for artists, visionaries, entrepreneurs, leaders, and trailblazers to create art through whatever forms of expression we align with. This is where we rewrite the rules. What I'm not available for here on my corner of these internet streets: attempts to control, censor, or silence my voice, spewing slander, ignorance, or hatred, overtly or covertly, hero complexes, pedestalization, or idolization, being an emotional punching bag for insecurities, unchecked unconscious blindness, biases, beliefs, projections, especially of expectations, unsolicited advice, savior complexes, performing allyship, covert selling, posturing, positioning, or self-promotion on my posts and in my containers, passive-aggressive energy or remarks, colonizing my creative expressions, energy, and work, for example, theft, taking, stealing, and exploitation for those who are unclear. And if that is something that you are not aligned with, that is okay. This just may not be the space for you. If anything about who I am, how I present, and how I do things irritates you, I invite you to lean into that and discover why and inquire why. And if you decide to leave, I still invite you to discover and inquire why. I'm willing to do my part. I will not coddle you. I also will not criticize you. I will deliver the true serum to you to support your own evolutionary becoming as a woman, lover, leader, as a human lover, leader. It is a big responsibility being here on this internet, being a leader, leading other people, mentoring other people. We must use this tool wisely. If these internet streets are to remain and my presence is going to be here, my standard and my stance is to have an enjoyable experience with you all and to co-create new realities in our lives, in our relationships, and in our leadership legacy. If that's you, welcome to my virtual world. And thank you for your presence here, powerful soul. As I shared, I wrote that and probably wrote it around 9/5, September 5th, and then shared it September 7th on the date that you saw on my Facebook. And since then, I actually had an additional experience. And I find that as a prophetess, God tends to deal with me very prophetically. Cheers. I'll share the tea I'm drinking in a moment. And oftentimes God will give me messages and insights that are for the future, that are for what's to come. We experienced it inside of Remarkable Woman. Inside of Remarkable Woman on 9/9, September 9th, I shared a transformational transmission on different types of power and how remarkable women are embodied in pure power and what that looks like. The very next day, massive events in the US occurred. And it was so prophetic. It was so prophetic. Me writing my embodiment standards for leadership and this new paradigm that I see for leadership, I wrote that before I had an experience. It was so prophetic. And I believe that is such a beautiful gift God has given me, to have this supernatural insight and to receive these supernatural guidances and messages that can steer us forward and guide us forward, because God is Alpha and Omega, beginning and end. And when you read across multiple wisdom traditions and different spiritual texts, you see themes and you see patterns. And ultimately, God's people always overcome. Always. I mean, we see that historically. I minored in Afro-Black American Indigenous Studies in undergrad over 2 decades ago. And historically, you can see that even despite challenges, even despite hardship, that we still come on top. You know, I've been going deeper into some research on my own lineage and ancestral roots and discovering royalty that exists. And how no matter what we experience in our lives, that we can still get to the other side with grace and sovereignty and beauty. And so I'm having this conversation with you today because I believe it's time. I believe that if these internet streets are not to go anywhere, and we are going to utilize these platforms for service, for co-creations, for messages, for being seen and heard and known and visible, that there is a responsibility on our part as stewardess of this. We are stewarding these platforms. What a blessing we can connect with one another from all over the world. That is a responsibility that we must steward with wisdom, that we must steward with maturity, that we must steward with embodiment standards, anchored in our soul sovereignty. That is how we will create a new paradigm in our leadership, where we create ripples of impact that outlive us, where we are experiencing extraordinary relationships, and our real life behind the scenes offline is better than whatever's portrayed on these internet streets. So many people show one thing online and there's somebody else behind the scenes. I don't stand for that. I stand for embodiment standards. So before we complete, I want to share a story about this beautiful tea. Cha is a sacred practice that supports my own embodiment and upholding my own embodiment standards. And my teacher, Miss Kelly, has been so gracious to share rare chas that she learned from her teacher, Master Wong, the late Master Wong. Master Wong brought these rare chas over from China and the art of Kung Fu Cha. And it is a beautiful art that I have been able to cultivate and be with to work on my own embodiment as a leader. And this particular cha is called Meng Fei Shan, and it is a Sheng Puer from 2003. 2003 was a beautiful year for me because it was when I got pregnant with my son, who is now 22 years old. And I once couldn't drink this cha because it has a smoky essence to it. I couldn't metabolize it. I couldn't digest it because my parents were smokers. And it triggered that. And for 3 years, she would gently invite me when I would sit at her tea table to try, and I would say, no, thank you. I didn't project anything back. I didn't criticize the tea. I didn't talk shit about the tea. I didn't say the tea was nasty. I just said, no, thank you. Not for me right now. And in my 4th year of sitting with her with tea, was it my 4th year or my 3rd year? Maybe it was 2 years. Yeah, maybe it was 2 years of sitting with her. And then my 3rd year, I was able to have it somewhere, that time frame, somewhere around there. All the timing and how many years, when you get to a certain age in life, you're like, what year is this? I was ready. I was ready to face my demons. I was ready to face the darkness. I was ready to face the depths of my soul that said no thank you. And I had a new experience with this cha, and now it's one of my favorites for alchemy work that I do with private clients behind the scenes. And I share this because sometimes we're not ready. We're just not ready. And it's okay. It's okay if we're not ready for what somebody has to offer. But what's not okay is when we try to harm someone and exploit them and violate them. Criticize them. Project at them. That's not okay. We can do better than that. We are better than that. And now that I'm ready, I have a new experience with this cha. I have a new experience with myself. I alchemize those triggers. And they don't trigger me anymore. What used to trigger me doesn't trigger me anymore. And the same with this misaligned experience that I had. As I mentioned in the past, this could have set me back, silenced me, even caused me to go into a pit of despair. And because of the embodiment practices I do inside of my work, and because of the community I'm in, they upheld me as the pillar of light that I am. And I use my practices to alchemize so that the wisdom can come through, so that the aligned message can come through. It's time to do better. It's time to rise. It's time to up level. We set the standard here as leaders. Subpar is unacceptable in leadership. We've got to raise the bar, and we've got to do better. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for listening to this point. Thank you for being here. I look forward to continuing this journey with you. Talk to you very soon. Take care now.